The sky was pale when the day began, streaked with yellow bands behind the low tree line. The dew still clung to the grass, and the cows moved with the familiar, lazy rhythm of animals that had no concept of urgency. Everything on the farm followed that rhythm. The barn creaked in the wind, the feed bins were half full, the tools on the wall hung where I'd left them, and the compressor hissed softly as the milking machine ran. Nothing out of place, nothing new, until I felt the first vibration while checking a pressure valve on one of the older lines, my fingers stiff from the cold. It wasn't the wind or distant thunder, it was lower, more deliberate, mechanical, the kind of sound that doesn't belong on farmland. The noise built fast, engines, 6 or more, growling, tearing up gravel, approaching from the south side of the road, too fast for tractors, too aggressive for delivery trucks. I set the wrench down slowly and stood as the first Harley came over the ridge like it was hunting something, black frame, low handlebars, red trim on the wheels, followed by 5 more, spaced just enough to look trained but not organized. The riders all wore matching black leather jackets with a red insignia on the back, a stylized crow, wings flared, eyes bright. Iron crows, they called themselves, not from around here, a sight I'd seen once or twice, like a cloud on the edge of a field promising nothing good. They came in hard, engines roaring, tires kicking up dust from the dry lane, the farm shaking in that way an animal stills when something wrong enters its space. I didn't move, just watched as the lead rider stepped off his bike, heavy boots hitting gravel like dropped tools, stocky, bald, arms covered in faded ink, a crowbar in his right hand, already scraped at the ends. My name is Robert Tanner, Rob, 65 years old, retired Navy SEAL, Afghanistan, 2001 to 2007, I don't talk about it, don't remember all of it either, but I know what men with weapons and no rules in their minds look like. These weren't soldiers, they were raiders, different intent, same results. The barn stood between us, 40 cows, a half-acre of rusted equipment, a silo that hadn't been filled since 2019, and Tim, my only help, up near the fence line working on a post he broke last week, 19, skinny, eager, no good in a fight but decent with cows and wire. I kept my hands visible, fingers open, my Glock 19 in the waistband under my old Navy jacket, K-bar knife strapped to my boot, not because I expected this but because I never stopped expecting anything. They didn't speak at first, just looked around, one kicked a bucket, another spat into the dirt, a third ran his fingers along the hood of my old pickup, leaving streaks in the dust. I didn't ask what they wanted, didn't offer help, didn't challenge, there was no need, I'd seen this play before, shake the farmer, break something loud, steal what's easy, make a point, come back later, that's how it works when men mistake violence for power. One of them walked into the barn, tall, wiry, a chain wrapped around his wrist like a threat he didn't plan to hide, brushing past the stalls, dragging the metal against the wood, the cows shifting, uneasy but not panicked. Animals sense when things are wrong, they just don't always know why. I stayed by the milking machine, kept checking the valve even though it didn't need checking, as the stocky one with the crowbar walked up slowly, saying something I didn't hear, didn't need to, his body spoke louder than his voice, lifting the crowbar slightly, just enough to show he could. That was enough, so I stayed still, his eyes not moving much, telling me he was too comfortable, not afraid of resistance, not yet. Another one smashed a milk can with a baseball bat, the sound echoing sharp and flat through the barn, and Tim heard it, freezing at the edge of the field, unsure whether to run or hide, choosing to watch. The one with the chain kicked over a bag of feed, the dust cloud rising slowly, like the start of something old, something buried, something waking up. They didn't take much that first time, $70 from Tim's pocket, a few gallons of fuel, one slashed my truck tire with a switchblade, another spit on the porch step, then they left, engines roaring again, tires spitting dirt, like nothing mattered. I didn't follow, didn't yell, just picked up the feed bucket and set it upright as the cows returned to chewing, the sun moving a little higher in the sky, the machines humming on. When the sound of the bikes faded, Tim came down, his face pale, hands shaking, trying to apologize for the money, but I told him it didn't matter, he was 19, he needed to learn, but not from me, not that way. I changed the tire myself with a spare behind the barn, the bolt holes rusted but the wrench still fit, my hands slower now than in 2005, but the memory in the muscles enough. The day ended quietly, the kind of quiet that isn't peace, just the absence of noise, and I sat on the porch with my coffee, bitter, too strong, just right, cleaning the Glock, checking the K-bar, not loading anything new, not setting traps, just sitting as the stars came out above the fields, no clouds, just distance, memory in light form. I slept for 4 hours, no more, didn't need more, they would come back, and I would be ready. Tim was already in the barn, milking the first row, not saying anything, and I didn't either, working in silence as the machine pulsed with its steady rhythm, rubber hoses, milk in a pail, repeat, until by 7:30, the sound came again, the same thunder, same machines, same signature, 6 Harleys, closer now, moving faster, not hesitating like last time, not watching, knowing where to go. They blocked the front of the lane, one parking half a meter from the water trough, another in the middle of the hay field, tires flattening a row of alfalfa, their positions deliberate, not tactical, but practiced, wanting to be seen, wanting me to react, but I didn't. The barn stayed open, cows lowing, feed half spilled as we hadn't finished prep, and I stood near the stalls, one boot forward, the other anchored, Glock still in my waistband, K-bar in my boot, same as yesterday, not cleaned overnight, there was no need, nothing had changed. They came inside slower this time, less spectacle, more confidence, believing their presence alone was enough now, that was their mistake. One leaned against a stall, boots caked with road grime, a bat in his hand, the chain guy again, now with the links hanging heavier, looped tighter, while Talon was at the front, his crowbar cleaner than before, almost polished, walking straight to the same spot as yesterday. I didn't move, my pulse steady. I'd been in valleys where snipers sat behind walls waiting 12 hours for a window. This wasn't stress, this was math. Tim handed over money, I saw the bill fold in his hand, $30, not much, enough to feel powerful. They took it without speaking, their postures saying more than words, thinking they owned this space now, that fear had taken root, not knowing how shallow fear grows in soil like mine. When they started smashing again, I waited, one hit the feed bin, another cracked a broom in half, and I kept watching as Tim moved behind a beam, phone in hand, good instinct, not fast, not military, but functional. When they were done posturing, they stood still, a pause before escalation, the one with the chain stepping forward as I stepped to the left, he swung, fast but wide, I caught the chain mid-air, his balance failed, I pulled, his weight shifted, his knee buckled, I let go at the right second, he fell. Bolt rushed, his bat too long for the space, I ducked low, moved inside the swing radius, grabbed his wrist, pivoted, the bat dropped, I drove my knee up, his ribs gave slightly, not a break, but enough to end motion. The others came next, trying to overwhelm, but it didn't work. One grabbed a metal pipe, I sidestepped, hit his temple with the heel of my hand, his eyes rolled back, another lunged, I kicked his kneecap, he dropped. Talon waited until the others were down, that's how you know who thinks they're a leader. He advanced, crowbar held back like a baseball bat, he swung, I raised my arm, deflected the arc, stepped inside his reach, shoved hard against his chest, he stumbled, not down, but not ready for a second swing. They were on the ground, all 6, not unconscious, not bleeding out, but beaten, and Tim had already called the sheriff, so I walked back to the milking machine, finished the row, cows needed it, life doesn't wait for violence to end. The cruiser came 20 minutes later, Deputy Mara, mid-40s, knowing how to read a scene, no questions, just recording, the camera above the barn caught everything, she made a copy. The Iron Crows were known in 4 counties, extortion, petty theft, intimidation, they rarely got resistance, that's why they kept growing, I wasn't part of the plan, I wasn't supposed to exist. The bikers left in bruises and curses, climbing onto bikes slower than they arrived, the dust trail they left quieter, more uncertain, and Paul from the neighbor's farm drove by 2 hours later, dropping off a bag of grain without asking anything, he understood. That night I cleaned the Glock, the K-bar too, using the old oil from base, my shoulder aching slightly, not from the fight, from the cold, or maybe from time, so I ate a sandwich, sat on the porch, the stars out again, a few brighter than yesterday, no moon, no clouds, sleeping 4 hours. The threat wasn't over, they would regroup, that's how men like that work, believing defeat is temporary, not understanding the permanence of resolve, but I would be here, the cows would need milking, and I'd be ready. The cows were calm, machinery still humming, Tim on time, working like someone who wanted to learn the rhythm, that mattered more than speed. The feed topped off the night before, saving us 20 minutes, when at 7:40 a.m., I heard the sound again, different this time, not 6 bikes, more, at least 10, engines louder, staggered, tires crushing gravel in irregular sequence, some newer, others patched, louder because they hadn't been maintained, telling me they were rushing. They didn't stop at the lane this time, driving straight into the field. One skidded near the barn, another slammed the kickstand into the alfalfa, bending metal into green. I counted faces, 8 I recognized, 2 new, one holding a shotgun, another with a hammer clipped to his belt, not tools, not accidents. They walked without hesitation, bruises visible, one had his arm in a sling, another limped. They remembered, but memory didn't prevent return, it motivated it, and I stayed at the edge of the barn, leaning against the wall, Glock still in my waistband, K-bar in my boot. Nothing changed, the feed done, milking half finished, routine ahead of schedule. They spread out this time, not clumped, meaning they'd planned it, maybe argued over approach. That's a weakness, no unified instinct, just force. While Paul showed up behind the fence line, carrying a shovel again, standing near the tractor, quiet, like a sentry, and Tim wasn't visible, meaning he was inside, having seen them, knowing the pattern now, good. They started walking toward me, Talon still at the front, crowbar in hand, bandaged across the nose affecting his breathing, moving slower than before, the one with the shotgun staying back near the gate, watching, probably thinking he was overwatch, but exposed, no cover, flat terrain, overconfidence. I didn't move, didn't posture, my body relaxed, knees loose, shoulders still, like cattle before the storm, ready but uninterested, as they passed the last fence post, stepping onto my ground again. That mattered, not legally, not symbolically, practically. I waited, not for drama, just for certainty, one stepping close, raising a chain, another flexing a baton, Tim still inside, Paul frozen, wind starting for the first time all morning. The shotgun guy lifted the barrel, not high, not aiming yet, just posturing, but it was enough, so I turned slightly, reached for a milk can, full, 30 pounds, threw it in an arc, not at the body, at the gun, connecting mid-barrel, the weapon dropping, him yelling, as I was already moving. One with a chain charged, I stepped aside, let him pass, grabbed his jacket from behind, pulled hard, he fell forward, hit dirt, didn't get up. The baton guy came next, swing from the right, too wide, I moved inside his arms, drove an elbow into his chest, he folded, dropped the baton. Talon hesitated, crowbar raised but not swung. I walked toward him, step by step, not fast, no adrenaline, just approach. Another biker moved to my left, tried to flank, but Paul swung the shovel, connected to the side of the man's knee, he crumpled. I was in front of Talon now, he still hadn't moved. I stared at him, he lowered the crowbar slowly, not surrendering, just confused. I stepped forward, he raised it again, that was his mistake. My hand moved fast, grabbed his wrist, twisted, he resisted. I stepped closer, drove my forearm into his throat, he fell backward. The rest scattered, some ran, some limped, some tried to regroup. Then the sirens came, loud, echoing, too late for action, just in time for cleanup. 3 cruisers arriving, deputies jumping out, guns drawn, no shots, no resistance, just arrests, faces in dirt, zip ties, confiscated weapons, flashing lights. Tim came out when it was safe, phone in hand. He'd called them before the first move, smart, that saved minutes. Minutes matter, and the sun was higher now, the field smelling of fuel and sweat, blood in the air, but not much, nothing fatal, only lessons. The deputies took them all. Talon didn't fight, the shotgun guy still yelling, he'd never used it, that would matter in court, and I walked back to the barn, finished milking, the machine hadn't stopped, the cows hadn't moved, that was the truth, life keeps happening. At noon, neighbors showed up, trucks parked in the lane, nobody asked questions, they fixed the gate, picked up spilled feed, someone left a bag of tools, Tim cleaned the stall, Paul helped, leaving the shovel leaned against the wall, saying nothing, and by 2 p.m., the farm looked normal, no blood, no sign of violence, just dust and tired animals. I sat on the porch again, drank cold coffee, my shoulder aching, the other one now, probably from lifting, and that night, I cleaned the Glock, didn't use it today, still needed cleaning, it was routine, sharpened the K-bar, not from necessity, from memory, ate a sandwich, stared at the stars, same ones as yesterday, some brighter now, or maybe I just noticed more, no moon, no clouds, sleeping 4 hours, that's enough. They'd be back, maybe different ones, maybe not bikers, violence changes uniforms, not intent, the cows would still need milking, and I would be ready that I checked the perimeter before sunrise, fences intact, no new damage, the cows calm, their movement steady, predictable, livestock doesn't concern itself with the patterns of human violence, it follows rhythm, feed, milk, sleep, repeat, and Tim arrived on time, wearing thicker gloves, checking the oil on the milking machine before I did, while Paul was late but brought lumber for the gate, not explaining why, not needing to. At 9:15 a.m., a black SUV rolled into the lane, no sheriff plates, no markings, government plates, federal, a woman and 2 men stepped out, the lead in tactical boots and jeans, asking for my name, I gave it, she showed ID, Department of Justice, Organized Crime Task Force, asking about the Iron Crows, so I answered with times, counts, actions, no embellishments, no omissions, they asked about weapons, threats, local connections, I told them what I'd seen, what I'd done, asked how I stayed calm. But I didn't answer that, I don't explain training, or trauma, or control, those things aren't for others to use or understand. They thanked me and left, the woman leaving a card, saying they might contact me again, I threw it in a drawer when I got home, it would stay there until I forgot about it, or until they returned, then at noon, Channel 7 showed up again, this time with a second van, staying back, filming from the road, people waving, a few tourists stopping, asking to take photos near the barn, I ignored them. Tim sold coffee for $3 now, people paid, some left extra, one woman tried to hand me a $100 bill, I didn't take it, pointed to the feed bin, she dropped it in, while Paul spoke with someone from a local co-op, telling them I'd handled the bikers myself, I didn't correct him, the truth wasn't worth repetition. That night, Lisa returned, the woman from the neighboring farm who'd spoken about patrols, bringing 2 men and a woman, one with a bolt-action rifle, slung but visible, offering to post up for a few nights, saying it was fair, I told them to watch the south ridge near the irrigation ditch, where visibility dropped, where I would come in if I were the enemy, they nodded, set up camp, and by the 3rd night, 10 people had signed on to Lisa's patrol, calling themselves Farm Guard, not my idea. Sounded like branding, but they wore vests, carried radios, had shifts. Tim signed up for a Sunday shift, Paul started welding his own gate locks, someone brought a drone, it buzzed over the fields, they said it was for early warning, I didn't object, but I didn't participate, and at 6 a.m. on Friday, Mara returned, looking more tired than usual, saying the raid had netted 14 arrests, $110,000 in cash, 3 illegal rifles, methamphetamines. Talon taking a plea, 20 years, others getting less, more arrests coming, the video enough so I wouldn't need to testify. She thanked me, I didn't say anything, she didn't expect me to, asked if I wanted protection, I said no, asked if I wanted press, I said no, asked if a judge might request testimony, I said I'd be available if needed, asked if I regretted anything, I didn't answer. By the end of that week, local politicians mentioned the incident, state senators tweeted about rural resilience, a congressman called the farm a symbol of defiance, a blog compared me to Rambo, another called me a domestic vigilante, I read none of it, Tim told me what they said, having started locking the barn at night without me asking, while Paul now kept a tire iron in his truck, something he never had before. The co-op sent over 6 volunteers to help with repairs, building a new corral, repainting the fence, adding motion sensors at the drive, donated by a hardware chain with logos on the boxes, I let them install it but removed the company banner they tried to nail to the barn, this wasn't advertising space, this was a farm, Lisa's patrol adding 3 more farms, rotating trucks, running radios on open frequency, The sheriff's office giving unofficial approval, saying it reduced response time. Showed community initiative. By the next Monday, no bikers returned, but a man in a white sedan drove by 3 times in one day, never stopping, just passing slowly, watching the fields, then leaving. I noted the plates, shared them with Mara, she said nothing but wrote them down, that was enough, and on Wednesday, I received a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs, saying they were aware of the incident, offering counseling resources, listing times, contact numbers, groups. I folded it, placed it under a coffee mug. I hadn't asked for therapy, and I didn't need applause. The cows still needed feeding, the sun still came up at 5:41 a.m. The Glock still sat in the drawer when I wasn't wearing it, the K-bar still got sharpened on Sundays, Tim worked longer hours, Paul stopped cracking jokes, the land didn't forget, but it absorbed, and it took 3 weeks for the farm to feel normal again. No more visitors, no more helicopters, just work, quiet, cattle, gears, sun, but I kept watching the road, always. By the 4th week, most of the noise had faded, the crowd stopped coming, the news vans moved on, the story was no longer trending. Someone somewhere had burned a courthouse or blocked a freeway, now more important, and the gravel in the yard had settled again, the new gate working fine, the cameras rotating at night, clicking softly, tracking deer more often than danger, the drone patrols growing quiet, farm guard losing momentum, half of them stopping showing up. Lisa said she understood, people have lives, their fear wasn't permanent. Mara came one last time, saying the prosecutions were going forward, Talon's plea holding, others getting less. I wouldn't need to testify, the video enough, thanking me. I didn't say anything, she didn't expect me to, while Tim was milking regularly, his movements precise, more confident, and Paul had finished reinforcing the barn, adding a second latch, new hinges, a reinforced beam. It would hold if someone tried to break in again. Donations stopped after week 5, the fund enough for a new generator, a few tools, a spare pump. I let Tim manage it, he kept receipts in a folder, showed them to me once, I didn't ask again, and Ellen came by once more, bringing fresh bread, saying she'd moved back full-time, renting pasture on the East Ridge. It felt safer now, not staying long, no one did. I started sleeping more, 5 hours instead of 4, no more smoking on the porch. The sky was still full of stars, but I stopped counting them, and one night, Paul asked if I'd join the co-op formally, said they wanted me on the board. I'd earned it, I said I'd think about it, I never did. The white sedan never returned, the fence held, the Glock stayed oiled, the K-bar stayed sharp, and on the 31st day, I walked the entire perimeter alone. The ground was dry, the cows grazed in silence, the barn solid. I checked every corner, every latch, every camera, nothing out of place. Then I stood by the gate, leaned on the fence, looked down the long gravel lane, empty, no engines, no dust, no movement, just a long stretch of silence, and I knew I'd watch it again tomorrow, not because I wanted to, but because it's what I do.